I won't do it. There is no sun.
Yeah. I joked this morning that all these user groups are always on. I always relate back to SharePoint Saturday, and it's always on the nicest day of the year. And I thought, like, if we were having SharePoint Saturday this year, would it be tomorrow? And that normally lines up with when it would be. And then I think, like, yeah, it's 80 degrees tomorrow. No one's going to show up, right? To that. So good thing we're on a virtual event today. Hopefully this afternoon, we'll get you wrapped up here around 4 o'clock for that side of it. So I'll go ahead and get started here for us. We got a pretty good group, it looks like, this afternoon. So let's get started here. I do have the chat open on my other screen. So if there is comments or questions that pop in, I will certainly try to adjust those itself. Yes, Brian, SharePoint Saturday is either the nicest day or the worst day. There's no other, there's no in between there, right? I remember eating outside at Normandale and it's 70 degrees in April and obviously the blizzard a couple years ago. Remember that vividly as well. First and foremost, as a thank you to the sponsors, I think it's important, to always take a minute to look through the names of the organizations that continue to sponsor great events like this, and then other user groups and other items there. Certainly the ability for you to win gift cards and prizes, even in this case, is certainly important. So let's go ahead and let's get started. So we're going to talk, it's a little play on words. I mentioned this to a colleague and they, immediately assumed it was a dad joke with it. But the idea of apps with inside of Microsoft Teams is great. And if you caught the tail end of Joel's, we've all been bitten by the Teams resource hog. But if you caught the tail end of Joel's piece, he really had that diagram in terms of really where do you start with that in adoption and the deployment of Microsoft Teams. And starting with the out of the box aspect of it is important, or maybe a third party application. We're going to really take it another level or two with that side of it in terms of, how do we bring in PowerApps? How do we build a custom app for a team? And then also taking a look at the chatbot side of the world as well. We are also going to take a step back and talk through policies and administration of those apps, because that obviously is important here for us. My name is Pat Petersen. I'm a Microsoft certified trainer. I work for an organization called RSM. RSM is a tax audit consulting organization across the globe. So with that here, we're going to talk through, obviously, the idea of chat, collaboration, other apps that can be deployed. Microsoft has some templates out there for you to take a look at and deploy with that. I may also even bring in some of the apps that we've built internally with inside of RSM to help with COVID and other type of engagements along the way, just so you can see some of those use cases that are out there with it. All right, so let's get to the good stuff. So we're going to talk through governance. We're going to talk through deploying and adding apps. If you've been through a session with me before, you know that if you ask a question, I will go down that path. So don't be afraid to use the chat to ask questions and to go through anything of that nature itself. So before we get started here, one of the pieces that I want to take a minute and step through here is I have a very, very simple form. And let me just go ahead and get the link to it here real quickly. Anyone, shorten the URL and copy. I have a very, very short form that I want to just take a minute for you guys to fill out. And there's a reason why. The reason why is we're going to actually see it inside of Teams in a little bit. So if you have a chance to click on the form and fill it out, it is 3 simple questions. The first question is, have you deployed an app in Teams? What is your favorite app in Teams? And then have you reviewed the app templates that are out there, the Teams templates for apps that Microsoft provides? 2 reasons why that question is there. One is I am curious if you've ever done it. And the other reason is now you have the link for it as well. So just something to make mention. All right, let's go ahead and let's get started. The first thing to make mention, of course, is when we think about Microsoft Teams is not just one thing. Right? It's an ecosystem, and you've heard that all day long, and you continue to hear that from time and time and time again. And so when you think about that side of it, you have the main workloads across the top. You have the chat, you have the calling, you have meetings, you have the teamwork area. That's not what we're talking about here in this session. We're really talking about kind of the third-party applications as well as some of the Microsoft apps that are out there as well. And how do you control and manage those specific applications? And so that's where we're going to spend our time today to take a look at it. The next piece to take a look at is some of the team's architecture. And this, diagram is one, I don't know where I borrowed it from, but it's not new by any means. But the reason why I wanted to bring this up here is Teams is more than just one thing, right? And so when you think about the idea of extending it even further, it becomes even more important. And the reason for that is take a step back and say, I'm going to build a Power App, or I'm going to customize this SharePoint list form, whatever the case may be. And I make that now available in Teams. I've just now instantly connected to maybe another SharePoint site or to another SQL database or whatever the case may be. And so that's important for you to understand that this is what it is out of the box. When you start to throw some of those other applications in there, custom ones that you build, maybe third-party applications, that's where it starts to grow and those connections become much more robust. The easiest way to build to customize or to build a custom solution with inside of Teams is to use PowerApps. And so when you think about PowerApps, there's really there's a couple different levels, right? In terms of what it looks like to deploy or build a Power App. You can build one out of the box, very simple as a data collection. You can go much more robust and you can build it and connect into different data sources. And then of course, there's other ones that you can build that route with approvals and have integrations with workflows and all those types of components that go with it. And so those are all kind of things to think about and to take a look at. Let me just pause for a second. I'm going to bring in let me just get my screen set up here real quick. I'm going to bring in a Power App that RSM developed. In fact, it was developed by someone on our, let's see here. I got a big nasty message here real quick. Let me just refresh it here real quickly. Let's see if it plays kind here. It is a simple Power App. We call it our Stay Well, I think is the name that they use. Let me just jump in here real quickly. There we go. And so this is a Power App, right? This is one that is designed from a mobile aspect of it. I don't know why it doesn't want me to enter the office here specifically. That's weird. But with it, I guess a good thing I'm at home today. With it, it's 3 simple questions. And so you'll have to envision a little bit what this looks like here. I got to figure out why I can't go into the office now. But with that being said, there's 3 simple questions. And the idea here is that I can pull it, directly from Microsoft Teams. So if I'm on my mobile device, if I'm here, if I'm in the browser, it's just an easy way for me to get there for it. And so I'm not sure why I'm getting that message, but anywho, we'll jump out of that real quick. And I guess I've never gotten the red screen. I've always only gotten the green screen that say I'm okay to come in. But that's where that citizen developer component and citizen developer aspect of it really comes into play, because it's important for you to think about all the different elements that you can build with it, whether it's apps or forms or connecting into the Dataverse, whatever the case may be. So basic app governance. We're going to jump into a demo here in just a minute, but one of the items to think about is users have the ability to upload custom apps if you choose. And so you can manage those policies appropriately, whether it's at the team level or at the organizational level. Essentially, from that side of it, it's the idea of adding an app in to be able to test it, to use it, publish it out as well, and it's zipped files from that. If you've deployed Viva Connections or taken a look at Viva Connections, There's actually a PowerShell script that you run. It generates a beautiful zip file. You upload that zip file and boom, you have your app created. So it's a pretty easy process to take a look at. Let's continue on here. So there's three main components from an app policy, and we're going to jump in to see where these are at here in a second. The first one is when you take a look itself, we can determine whether users can upload policy or upload apps. We can take a look to see if users can upload an app to a team. We can manage that appropriate, whether it's a team setting, whether it's a custom app or an org-wide setting themselves. Keep in mind that these settings themselves don't necessarily block third-party applications with where you're at. So let's go ahead and let's take a look at the admin center. I joke a little bit because I had that exact same problem with one of my demo environments that Joel was having with his it having the red bar across the top. I don't know what or who I made angry, but anyways, we're here now. So with this being said, I'm inside of the admin center. I'm in the manage apps. I'll zoom in a little bit here for you, maybe not quite that big itself. The first item to make mention, of course, is you have the ability to see, there's roughly 1,000 apps in this environment rather that have been deployed. There are additional columns that you can add in here to be able to see. So there are all columns in terms of permissions and whether it's a custom app and licensing and all those pieces as well. So don't be afraid to scroll to the very bottom to get the side scroll or the horizontal scroll to come in here. What's really important from it is if there's an app, for instance, that I want to block, right? So let's take an app that's out there that I've never even heard of that could be really, really good. This one. No, that's a Microsoft app. We better not block that. I think I have one blocked already, and it's got nothing wrong with it. It's purely, I don't read. There we go. I don't know what that app does. So from this side of it, this is the idea of blocking it. I can come in and I can say, nope, we're not going to use that app in our environment. That's like a master on-off switch, if you want to use that term. It's the ability to turn it off at that level. With that being said, be a little careful with that, right? Because just because you don't necessarily know that that app's in use, you have to be careful, because if you sneak up in here into the org-wide settings area, there's an option here. This option here catches every organization that I know or that I've been into a little off guard. I have an organization that I worked with, a newer organization here recently, where they've deployed teams 2-3 years ago. They went through and they blocked all the apps that they don't use. That was great 2-3 years ago. However, what did they run into a problem with? They never, any new app was available because this setting here itself was turned on. So what was happening is they blocked all their quote unquote legacy third-party apps. And then in this case of it, they certainly never came back in and reviewed them. And so this is where you have the ability to manage some of that here, right? So if you block apps, I think it's important for you to review some of these organizational wide app settings. Now, you can block apps here, which is like a master on-off switch. There's other ways you can do it though, like room light switches, right? I can come to my breaker and I can turn off the entire house. Or I can go to the specific bedroom and I can turn off the light switch. We're talking about the master switches, right? We're talking about organizational wide settings here. With that being said, we'll jump into the policies or permission policies. If you're not familiar with policies inside of Teams, one of the items, yeah, you can use, I won't say the name, Brian, because what's going to end up happening is then she'll answer me back with it. So yes, you are correct. I saw a little off topic, but I saw a poll on Twitter, I think, where somebody said, if you have a voice assistant like her, like the Amazon or Google or otherwise, what do you use it primarily for? And it was like, turn off the lights, ask it the weather, right? I don't know if it's really made us any smarter. Anywho, permission policies. When we take a look at the idea of permission policies, if you're not familiar with this, I'd encourage you to actually not to toot my own horn, but if you go back to last fall session on the YouTube side of the world, I believe it's recorded. There's a session on there on managing permission policies with inside of Teams. So I'd encourage you to take a look at it. With this being said here, you of course have the global org-wide default. That global org-wide default is what the entire organization inherits. So you have the ability, obviously, from a Microsoft side of the world to restrict what apps are available from Microsoft. You also have the ability to restrict what third-party apps are available and whether or not the custom apps be installed by users. Now, with that being said, depending upon where you're at in your maturity level, you may want to make some changes to this. And with it, it may be the global side, and then you want to open it up. So oftentimes, what a lot of organizations that I work with will do is they will manage their third-party apps. They'll come in and they'll say, allow specific apps. And they're going to come in and say, you know what, maybe they still use Zoom for video conferencing, so we're going to add Zoom in there, right? So we're going to block everything but Zoom. Then we come into the custom app side of it. You know what? We're going to block all apps from the custom side. This is the global policy, right? So this is going to affect everybody that's out there. Then what they'll do, I'll just click cancel here so I don't make a change here for anyone. Then they'll come through and they'll create a custom policy in terms of custom, maybe the IT department, or maybe there's an operational folk, maybe there's the champions, whatever term you want to use. Maybe they get some additional level of permission, and that's where they'll come in and make some modifications here, right? Being able to give additional policies or additional settings here for that. Again, this is a demo environment, so just to kind of talk through and see that process. Policies, of course, do take some time for them to replicate through. They're almost immediate in the browser to the desktop app and the mobile app. They're anywhere between 30 minutes and 2 to 3 hours. The next piece here inside of the admin center is the setup policies, and this is one of them, honestly, that I think a lot of organizations miss on. They stick with the default, right? They stick with the idea that you're going to get activity, you're going to get chat, you're going to get calendar, you're going to get calls, you're going to get files. And so when we think about this side of it, let me go ahead and open up the global org-wide here. This is the ability for whether or not I want users to be able to upload custom applications. The side loading component that's here. What this does then is this would allow a user to upload one itself without having to submit it to the Teams app store. Really, really good if you're a developer or if you're a custom, customization, or, you're someone that's building those items. You can choose to allow the side loading of apps. With that then as well, whether or not users can pin different apps in their rail. And so when you think about that aspect of it, this is where you actually have the ability to make modifications and adjustments to what order things are in and whether or not you see certain apps that are available. And we'll talk through that here in just a second. Then down below here, then apps that users can install or built in automatically. So in this case of it, I can choose, whether or not there's a specific app. We'll just pick on the Zoom one again in this case. And I can choose to say, you know what, Zoom will be installed for users automatically so they can find it much quicker and simpler. And then down below here, we have the ability for the pinned apps. What apps are pinned, what apps are available out there. And you see, there's Bert and the walkie-talkie app that's been pinned for users in this case. This is really the idea of how do I control that experience for users? And if there's a new app I want to pin in here, I can come in here. I don't know if we have one. There we go, organization. Let me just type that in again. I can go ahead and add that, on there. And so now it's pinned on the left-hand rail for users that meet that policy. And so here in that case, of course, this is where you can make that modification and you can choose to have different policies, obviously, for different audiences and just something to think about and take a look at. The last piece here inside of the admin center is the ability here to customize the store. And this is one, it's newer. It hasn't been around forever. But this is where you can choose to customize what the store looks like, whether you have a custom logo, watermarks, backgrounds, those types of components. I mean, it depends, right? Are you someone that really wants to customize it or not? It's just something to think about. Let's jump into Teams here so we can see where some of those apps are located. So in this case of it, I'm just going to go ahead. I'm actually going to refresh my my web browser here real quickly so we can see it. All right. So the first thing to make mention is you'll notice on the left-hand side of the rail, here's my different applications that are out there itself. If you're not familiar with this, you do have the ability to, right-click and pin a specific application in place, so it's always there itself. Now, I am zoomed in a little bit here, so if I zoom out, you can actually see the apps are pinned in place. That's just something to make mention about, that if there's an app that you use on a regular basis and it keeps disappearing, you can choose to make adjustments here. Now, with that also being said, there are additional apps down below. This is the store that we're launching to here. And this is where I can actually choose to bring in my own applications. Now, you'll notice that I have two options here. One is I have the ability to submit to an app catalog. I can upload a custom app. I can see that there's apps that are built for the organization. I can also choose to search for third-party applications as well. So in this case, this is where I could actually come through. I'm going to just search for forms because this is where we're going to actually pull that form in. I can see that I'm bringing in the forms app. I'm going to choose to add it to a team real quick. I'll just choose to add it to the general adoption of 365, and we'll go ahead and click set. Now, in this case, as I'm adding it in here, this is why I wanted to show you, is that I can actually come through and I can choose the form, which was called Microsoft Teams apps. It's not owned by a group. If you're not aware, Microsoft Forms can be owned by a group or can be personal. I built this as personal. And then I can actually choose, instead of collecting responses, I can say show the results. So we'll go ahead and click save. Let's see what our results are, that those of you that took it. I have not peeked at all. All right, we got 14 responses. It took you about a minute and a half to do these. In this case, for what is our, have you deployed an app in Teams? We're about 50-50, right on the spot. Thank you for that. Nobody said maybe, so that's good. The next portion here itself is, what is your favorite app inside of Teams? There's some latest responses here. I think I can maybe drill down. I may have to go to the browser here to see some better responses for it. I think I will need to, maybe I got to go to the form and actually drill deep into it. But with that being said, have you used those portions before? Some of you said yes, most of you said no, one of you said maybe. And so those templates that are out there are good, because what they do is they give you an idea of what you can do and other use cases with it. Are they going to match 100% of your area? The answer is no, right? But will they work maybe for you? Possibly, with some minor customization. So let's take a step back here. Let's jump into the Teams again for us. And let's take a look at somebody's favorite app that they posted. So they said approvals. I don't know who that was, but that's a really good app that I think for most of you, it's one that I would encourage you to take a look at or to communicate to your users. There's a few of them, this being one of them, tasks being another one that are out there. But approvals in this case. If you're someone that's using Power Automate for an approval process, you will see approvals here. If you're not using Power Automate, not to worry, you can actually still create your own approval request. So in this case, I can create my own approval request and I can say, I need a raise. I'll go ahead and send it to a colleague of mine named Ben in this case, and I can give them additional details. I feel like I deserve more money. All right, I can send attachments here. I can also give him custom responses, whether he wants yes, no, maybe so. In this case, I'm going to stick with just the default. Now, this works great for those ad hoc approval processes, right? What if you had one? What if you needed to build an ongoing approval process? We're going to load the Power Automate app here in just a second so you can see how that integration works. I'll go ahead and send this over. I don't know if Ben is monitoring that here specifically, but if I toggle this a few times here, we'll actually hopefully be able to see my sent one here. Let me refresh my screen. Hopefully it's showing up there. But with that being said, if you are someone that is using approvals with inside of Power Automate, it is the same process, right? This is just an ad hoc one for me to take a look at. I guess they don't want me to have a raise, right? I'm not seeing that here. Anywho, that's the process that exists. Let's go ahead and let's explore some of the other apps that come in with Teams. One that I showcased this morning that I think is incredibly important is one called Viva Insights. Viva Insights is the My Analytics platform itself. This is the ability here for you to actually collect data about how you're working. There's some additional components that are built in there, such as the virtual commute. For those of you that work at home, you have the ability to change that. You also have the ability to reflect in terms of how you're feeling. With that being said, as this on goes, you can obviously keep track of where you're at, which is really a pretty neat component. From a user side of it, there's really nothing a user needs to know other than they can pin it, or you can have it available for users, to be aware of or to be familiar with itself. Send praise, go through an exercise or a reflection, calming like exercise here. I can jump into the stay connected area. And if I had messages, if I went to my work one, you would for sure see that there are things that I need to do that I haven't done yet. But I can also protect time. So I can choose to utilize focus time. And then down below here, I can choose to be reminded on when I want to disconnect for the day, right? When is that end of the day for me? And I have the ability to keep track of it. So Viva Insights is just the My Analytics piece that you may have been exposed to from Outlook or Exchange. That's now just called and rebranded from Insights to now Viva Insights. The next item that we're going to talk about a little bit is Viva Connections. Viva Connections is, I have it in a different environment here real quick, so let me bring over my screen. Viva Connections is an app that you self-build. And what I mean by that is it's a PowerShell script that once you have a appropriate SharePoint home site developed, it's a PowerShell script, at least at this time, that goes and generates it itself. With that being said, if you have a SharePoint site already, I would encourage you to explore this side of it. Mine is just off of the landing template. If you're aware of SharePoint templates, you probably have seen this template before. But with that being said, this is just more or less deployed as an app. I just called it landing. And now this is a fully functioning SharePoint site, right? So whether it's learning pathways or whether it's a custom app or a custom SharePoint site, in this case, you can choose to bring that in. One of the pieces to make mention about is if you are someone that builds a SharePoint site, not to worry. Guess what that is, everyone? Hub site navigation, right? So your hub site navigation comes in. So you don't have to build anything or customize it at all. You can make those modifications on the site. Shane had a really good point. The biggest out of the box app that he gets the biggest wow response with is one called Who. And if you're not aware of Who here, let me actually bring in my RSM account here because it's got a few more people to take a look at itself. All right. Do they have the Who? They may have the Who bot turned off for me, to be honest with you. Let me jump in here real quickly. Let me get to a different environment. We'll come in here. Come on. Wonder if I have it off, but shoot. I don't have it available to me. The Who bot is a really good one. Let me see if, yeah, that's not going to work. The Who bot is a really good one for you to have the ability to actually come through and use it. I unfortunately haven't used it in some time with it. So Shane, I don't know if you have a screenshot you want to post in there or can post it in there, but the Who bot is a really good one to take a look at and to see it. I don't have it queued up for me, so I don't necessarily have it ready. Maybe I can find it here in a little bit, but that honestly is one that I like and have used in the past for it. In this case of it, I just don't have it queued up ready to go for us. Thanks, Shane, for that option. All right, let's take a step back here. Let's take a step back and let's talk through, some other elements and some other items here to think about. Let me just jump forward because I jumped through the slide here a little bit itself. This is one, there's a lot of information on the screen, but I wanted to at least include it in on the deck if you choose to download it, so you have the ability to see it, is with the custom app settings, right? Whether it's the organizational or the team app, we'll go into the team setting here in just a little bit, or that user custom app policy. If they're on in various areas, of course, they have different behavior. And so that's really where I wanted to make that be available itself. Nice, Shane. Demoed Who Knows About Citrix. We should really have one for Who Knows About Microsoft licensing for it. So if you were in the last session, that was towards the tail end itself. But no, it is really good. It looks at the profile of the users, as well as it can also, I believe off the top of my mind, it can also surface like who have I emailed about a specific topic or those types of items. All right, so that's one element. Let's go ahead and let's continue on with our presentation so we can actually build an app in a custom chatbot here as well. So this is one where I think it's important for you to understand that if you're going to go down the app side of the world and you're going to build an app, you really need to have a process in place, right? Today, we don't have the time to build out that in-depth process. We're going to just jump around a little bit more for it. I really like to step back. My background, I've built, probably 1,000 or so workflows in SharePoint, Power Automate, and others. And with that, if you don't take the moment to architect it, first of all, and you just start building it, eventually, when it comes to the managing side of it, it's just not possible, right? And so with that being said, a guidance for apps to take a look at is to develop it, to validate it, upload it or add it in, test it out, manage it, and then as an end user, let them discover and adopt to the specific app. And so I think that's an important item to take away from it, is that process, right? Whatever process you build internally inside of your organization, follow a process. Don't just ad hoc start building things without having a good understanding of how's it going to look at the end, whether it's wireframes or whether it's designed in an appropriate way. Those are all elements here to think through. All right. Some of the items that we've already talked about is controlling the access to the applications, pinning it for users to find it. And then the other piece of it itself is obviously the audit log for Teams apps that you can go ahead and keep track of it itself. All right, one of them on the templates here that I just like to make mention about is the request a team app. That is one of the elements and one of the apps that's available from a template side of the world. We're not going to talk much about the templates piece of it itself, just because the idea there is the documentation is there. And so I don't want to take the time and the effort to go through and walk through those template ones that are out there. But more or less, just something to think about here is that's one that a lot of organizations need some sort of governance or process in terms of it here to take a look at and see. Another one here as we jump into it is one called Employee Ideas rather. Employee Ideas is a good app for you to take a look at. And it's a good way for you to collect information around a campaign, the category for grouping, other things from a common theme side of the world. So that's a good one here to take a look at if you haven't done so already. All right, let's start talking about some custom apps here, and we're actually going to build one here in just a second. We're going to talk through the idea of bots. We talk through the idea of bots within inside of Teams. A bot itself is a chatbot, conversational bot that you can build to can actually go through it and have repetitive automated tasks, whether it's customer service, asking a question, whatever the case may be. You can use it for everyday use, whether it's the idea of coming through and actually, asking it information about the weather, dinner reservations, right? The whole concept of your Amazon and Google assistants that are out there. Quick questions as well. The way that we're going to build a bot here specifically is on the idea of Power Virtual Agents. And when we take a look at the idea of Power Virtual Agents, it's part of the Dataverse side of the world, and a lot of you already have access to that Power Virtual Agents for Microsoft Teams. There are some limitations, obviously, from a licensing perspective. We are not going to go deep into the licensing conversation. There is a link for that if you're curious. But with that, you can at least start to explore and build what an app, what a bot rather can do for it. So let's step into that here real quick. Let me just go ahead and get that opened here. All right. Let me just open up our chat window in case there's any questions itself. All right. So itself, when we take a look at it, we're going to actually come in and utilize the Power Virtual Agents app that's available for me itself. So just go ahead and add it in. I've already added it in here, tested to make sure it worked, the things that a good demo does ahead of time. In this case here, there's a nice video. It says 5 minutes, no code to go ahead and create that. Has anyone gone ahead and created a bot already in your organization? Feel free to put in the chat window with the purpose of that bot. So thumbs up from a few of you. Just interested in the purpose side of it here. Let's go ahead and let's build one. I'm going to go ahead and click start now. I'm going to shortcut a little bit here just from a time perspective, but just something to make mention about. I'm going to just throw it in the Adopt 365 team, and we're going to jump into the chatbot side of the world. All right, give it a name. In this case, we're going to go ahead and you can be as creative as you want. I'm just going to call this bot's name Friday, and then obviously come down and click create. Perfect. Yeah, thanks, Shane. I think that's a good concept, is that FAQ style bot. All right. They're not difficult to build, right? It's really the idea of managing it now going forward, continuing to add to it, whether or not it's a pure Q&A bot or if it's a crowd, updated bot, and who's got the ability to manage it. So in this case of it, now that I've gone ahead and added it in, I can see there's my Adopt 365. There's my Friday side of the world itself. So there's my name of it, right? I named it Friday itself. You could name whatever you wanted. In this case here, I can obviously jump to the topics area. I can test it, and I can also make it available to others. On the left-hand side of the screen, I can jump into topics. I can jump into the entities area, the analytics, and so on and so forth down my left-hand side. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just test this thing out. I'm going to type in hi. All right. Now you may say, okay, where is this at? What is this doing? Where is this pulling this type of information from? Not to worry, in this case, if you go ahead and click on it, you'll actually see the trend area that's there. You'll actually see where it's at. So if I do a trigger phrase of hello, good morning, good afternoon, hello, friend. I don't know who would type that in there, but of course you have the ability to trigger it and make some, additional details there as well. Here's the process. Hi, I'm a virtual agent. You can see that information there. I can also come through. If you'd like to speak to a human, let me know anytime. So what can I help you with today? I can add additional notes and I can ask questions. I can call an action. I can end with a survey, in that side of it. So this is a topic that's available here. So in this case, I can go ahead and ask another question. And I can have a multiple choice question, right, for it. So I can say, how are you today? Multiple choice, we'll just say good. New option here, we'll go ahead and do bad. All right. Notice here, what happens if it equals good? What happens if it equals bad, right? So you can start to build this out. This is where you need to have a good whiteboarding or some sort of planning process, right? Because what if you need to add something in at the end? Or what if you need to build different conditions in? Gathering those requirements is so important with any of these specific, applications. In this case, I'm just going to go ahead and choose to say start over. All right, so now that I'm start over here, I have the ability to see that information. I have not saved it here. Let me go ahead and save that so we actually get that question to pop in here for it. Let's see. There we go. How am I doing today, good or bad, right? I haven't programmed anything to happen, but I say good, right? And now with that, it has no idea what to do, which is fine, right? We're not testing that process out. But with that, hopefully you have the ability to really see how quick and easy it is to build it. Now, let's jump into the specific topics here. So these are the specific topics. I have the trigger phrases for it. I can take a look at the authoring canvas, which is where it was at. I can look at, specific other items, and I can build pieces here, right? So I can go ahead and build other topics. I can create a new topic here, the name, the trigger phrases, the status, and go to that authoring canvas. For time perspective, we're not going to go here, right? But you hopefully get the idea of that entire more or less simple process here. All right, I can test it out, which I already went ahead and tested it on the left-hand side. And then, of course, I can choose to publish that bot out itself. If you're using premium connectors, of course, that would be available or needed. From here, then, I can choose to publish it out to other users so they actually have the ability to use this bot as well. In this case, it does take, obviously, some time to replicate through. But with that, it can be very simple for you to build a quick question and answer or a quick, simple component. Of course, you can go much more in depth with some of the connections and those types of areas that are out there, but explore this. Be curious when it comes to that type of element. The next one we're going to take a look at here is the ability for us to actually, and I don't think I have any of it there. Let me go ahead and add it. The next one we're going to take a look at is the idea of PowerApps. And I'll just go ahead and add in the PowerApps the area for me. All right. So when you take a look at the PowerApps side of the world, those of you that may have grown up in the SharePoint space or maybe have experience around the app component that's there, I think it's important for you to understand, that there's integration back and forth, right? And so when we're seeing this element itself, your PowerApps that you build can easily be brought into a team if you choose. And so with that being said, let me go ahead and let me just jump in here. And I can see a few different apps that I've gone ahead and deployed for us. Itself, I can click on, new app or start now. Either one's going to get me to a similar space here. But in this case, I can choose what team I want to make an app available. So I'm going to choose the 365 one again, and I can go ahead and build it. Now, with that, this app is not, depending upon my connections in there, I'm just going to call this MN365 user group here, and we'll put a hyphen. And I'll do spring 2021 so I know where this is coming from. All right, so now that I have this named, I can go and build my connections, right? I can connect into SharePoint if I choose. I can connect into an Exchange calendar if I choose. I can connect into all those different areas, right? This is not a Power App building session, so we're going to just assume that our app is fully built, okay? So our app looks great. It's wonderful. It's amazing. It's beautiful along the way. In this case here for us, of course, I can customize it and make changes to it. For time's sake, we don't need to go till 6 p.m. tonight, so we'll just assume it's good to go. And now I have the ability to publish it out into Teams. In this case, now that I've gone ahead and actually let me save it first of all. I always save before I publish. I think I did that already. All right, we'll go ahead and publish it out. All right. With that being said here, itself, here is the ability to choose what channel I want to add it to. And I'm going to just add it here to the announcements channel. And I'll go ahead and click on save and close. Here for that side of the world, you know, here is the ability now for me to publish that app out. I have it available. If I jump into that team area for us, I think I put it under announcements here. There it is. Now there's my beautiful app, which you're going to notice is completely empty and blank, but there it is, right? So you have the ability to take it from a Power App and quickly deploy that into a Teams environment. And so that's what we're seeing, you know, in this case. Let me take a step back here and I'm going to pull open a few apps, I guess you could say, that we use with inside of RSM, just so you can see kind of that Power App integration component that's out there. You just have to go ahead and pull it open here real quick. Bear with me here. I'm not on our I'm not on our VPN, so my shortcuts don't work. Or let me just add it in here. All right. I'm going to pull this open in just a regular browser experience, so that way you can see it a little bit larger. And then I don't have to worry about filtering out my Teams side of the world. All right. So one of the components here to think about is this is a key app that we have deployed inside of Teams. And there's obviously some components that come with it here as well. This is being fed from the profile side. This is being fed from SharePoint side as well. And if you're curious, Microsoft is going to change its default font after 15 years. So no longer will it be Calibri or Calibri, however you want to say it, as well as Times New Roman is also gone. So we'll probably have to have a funeral for font choices at some time. With that being said, though, you know, we do have obviously the different tabs and different components that are built in. This can be added into a team, added in easily into that area real quick and easy. So that's just something to think about here and to take a look at that. Your Power App can do more than just one simple process. It can do multiple things, route data, collect that information, and then, of course, be included in on the team side. The one that I want to take a little bit of a step back to is one, you know, from a bot perspective here itself is really the ability to control, you know, what that looks like. And so let me go ahead and bring that back over. So here when we're taking a look, we have one called Bert. I can obviously tag into the Microsoft licensing side of it here. This is one to help out users in terms of understanding what types of licensing they should look at. Business, you know, premium. Do they have advanced compliance need? Of course they do. And in this case, we can continue to go through. Do they require SharePoint on-prem or legacy CALs? So this is one where you look at that side of it, and this is really a component that can help a lot of users and users inside of an organization maybe help go through that. And so this is one that we use ourselves to really help drive that type of component and that type of chatbot in terms of understanding where that piece comes in. All right. Let's jump back into our PowerPoint here real quickly. The one item here that, I think is important for us to take a look at and to step back into and just, reiterate and review here is the idea of the policies. And so when you think about the policy side of it inside of Teams, you of course have the organizational side of it here, which we'll take a look at. Org-wide policies for users. You can modify the default. You can create multiple custom policies. But the other item that's important is the ability here to actually customize and include it from a team side of the world too. So let's go ahead and let's explore, managing a team. And if I come into the settings portion that's here, where is it? Enable apps, allow members to add or remove apps, custom apps here, right? And so this is one that I think as an owner, a lot of owners of teams aren't aware that this is a setting that they can control and they can manage. And so this is one where I would encourage you to take a look at or provide guidance for your owners in terms of what they should be looking at. Should users be able to add in their own apps to a team? Should they be able to upload custom apps into a team? Those types of areas. Of course, your organizational policies are going to trump some of these. So you don't have to worry about maybe getting as granular if you have tighter organizational restrictions. But at the same time, if you don't have those and it's a little more open, you may want to control, what users can and cannot do. So for instance, here from a member perspective, I can easily jump in and of course I can add in, my tabs across the top and I can add in different applications, right? And so I have the ability to see, some of those that are out there itself. Let's take a look. One of them that I highlighted here was the idea of employee ideas. So this is an app that you can bring in real quick and simple. Let's build it here real quick. All right, so this is installing the app with inside of the channel. It's taken a little time specifically, but the idea behind that is this is one of those templates that's out there, or one of the templates that's available for you to be able to control that and actually have those apps available. So let's take a second and let's take as that's loading here, let's take a look at some of the other apps that are out there. So of course, these are tabs. Apps are, in this case of it, really the same element. It's only whether it's available for the team or personal. Your personal ones are more or less on the left-hand side. But in this case here, one of them that I think is getting a lot of traction here lately is the whiteboarding app. That's there. And in fact, I think I saw that they just came out with some, updates in terms of it here. But that's where you have the ability to actually go ahead and draw out and bring some of those elements in. You, of course, have the Stream app, the List app. The list goes on, right, in terms of all your specific Microsoft apps that are out there, project and road mapping apps that are there. We can jump into the specific apps for the team, right? And now I'm in that app area. I can see there's the employee ideas, there's that forms. I can click on more apps here and actually jump in and bring in some additional apps as well. So I can, search for, we must have Zoom turned off, but I can, more or less bring those in as needed. With that being said here, as we're coming into the activity side of it, and now I can see that employee ideas items is built. Let me go ahead and allow that. And the reason why I like to make mention of some of these templated apps that are there, and of course that link that I sent you, there were a lot of them itself out there. All right, we'll just do it general and let's go. We got it. All right. So here is the idea of a templated app, right? This is one where I didn't have to do anything. I just automatically come in here. It's already built for me automatically. As long as I can add it in, I have the ability to use it. And in this case, I can add different campaigns along the way. I can use it, right? So there's a lot of different app templates out there, whether it's employee onboarding, the request to team that we talked about already, or even just a simple SharePoint app that you've already have built, right? The PowerApp publishing component is also out there. In this case, we'll go ahead and do a campaign, and we're going to just say no meeting Friday. Anyone organization have that the concept here? No meetings on Fridays. We'll go ahead and add that in. Oh, we got to do a cover image. Sure. Yes, Tim. I love it too. Itself. Oh, it looks like maybe I don't have the ability to post it here. That's what I get for doing a live demo. There we go. There's my no meeting Friday. And from this side of it, others can come in and submit ideas and actually update that process itself. So it's a really good suggestion box, if you want to use that term, and actually let users come in and access the specific application itself. And what you saw there was how easy it can be to deploy an app. Now, you'll want to take some additional time to understand where each of the elements fit in and are there adjustments made or not. So if you don't have a development environment, I'd encourage you to go get one or a separate tenant or a separate test area for you to test some of these out, because you would not want to do this in a production area, right? That's that first on that table that I showed, that first left-hand side component to think about. You know, other apps, as we're taking a look here for it, you know, one that I think a lot of people forget about if you do scheduling is the ability here from a shifts perspective. This is the ability to actually schedule out who's working, when people are working, clock in, clock out. So if you are someone that has that level of detail in terms of user access, that's one that I'd encourage you, you know, to explore. It's built into the team level. I see it used heavily in financial services and banks and credit unions for staffing. That's just one item. The other one here is one, bookings is a really good one. Bookings is also available in a calendar format or a calendar view now. So I can see it there, but if I jump into calendar, I'll also see it across the top of the screen as well, if you have access to it. That's one from a booking perspective to actually go ahead and have other people schedule meetings with you, whether they're online or in-person meetings, to actually have that happen for it. So that's, you know, kind of the apps that I see a lot of users with inside of Microsoft really take advantage, or users rather with inside of the Microsoft 365 ecosystem take advantage of. The last one here that I'll just highlight for us, and then I'll jump into some other components or other areas, is the tasks by planner and to do. So much like that Viva Insights items where you didn't have to necessarily build it or configure it at all. This is where you have the ability to actually you know, bring in tasks, whether they're flagged emails that you have, or whether they're planner tasks or project tasks that you're assigned. You'll see them all there for you as well. And so I think that that's an important, you know, item to really think about and to take a look at, is communicating some of your apps that are out there and how you can use your apps as well for it. So, you know, as you're taking a look at those items, you know, those are all more or less important, you know, items to think about, to take a look at and to utilize and use. All right, let me just go ahead and pull open one of my favorite apps that I was involved with here for us. Is one that's called, we call it the Slide Builder. It's one from a side of it here. It's one that I think a lot of you might be interested in the component of it. And so I want to just introduce it to you here. Of course, I'm inside of Teams. It's added in here as a tab with it, but of course it's a Power App. So you have the ability to take a look at it and see it. With this being said, this is actually a slide deck builder. So when you have when you have a lot of PowerPoints that you need to manage together, it can be very difficult to build those, right? Or to have those available in a single repository. And so with that here, we do have obviously the ability to view it. I can also select it itself, and then I simply click create my slides. Again, I'm in Teams. I can view a PowerPoint. I can choose to select a few of these together, click create my slides, and it's automatically going to send me an attachment. And there's back and forth on whether or not we went down that email path. But here is a really good app integration, right, with Teams. So now somebody doesn't have to leave a specific area to access it and be able to bring that in. They can come in here very quick, very easily, navigate, find their specific location and their specific slides, click on create slides, and then it automatically emails them the slide decks that are out there. So that's just another app that I wanted to highlight, as an example itself, so you had the ability to see, where those are located and how those are being used. All right, let's jump back into our PowerPoint here, and we will finish things up. All right. Let me just find where I'm at for us. So one of the items that I think is important to really take a step back is when you start to think about some of those templates and PowerApps that are available, with it. And that's really kind of the first step is those third-party applications. Once you've mastered those third-party applications, or maybe you're paying for Zoom or Smartsheets or Trello or Jira was mentioned, now we have to extend the platform, right? And so one of the items that we can extend our platform for is the templates that are available. And so that's where we're at here from a templating perspective. And so there's 4 main key benefits of using templates inside of Teams apps. One of them is they're deployed directly to the cloud, right? So they're easily available. They have sample code out there for you already in terms of how they can be used and how you should use them. You can customize them, right? So in terms of making modifications and adjustments, you can do it. And then, of course, they have some detailed documentation. My recommendation is before you build an app that you're kind of self-building out there, whether it's a Power App or you're using the App Builder Studio that's out there, I would encourage you to take a look at some of those GitHub resources that are out there. And so, refreshing that side of it, all app templates, include the scripts that are needed, whether they need Azure or Power Platform that's needed. They have the recommended sample code, that's needed from a community side. They're customizable. So they're very minimal communication itself, very minimal configuration rather. And then of course the detailed documentation that's needed there as well. The last thing that I want to make a quick mention for is 2 components. One is the policies in terms of where you can deploy those items itself. And then the other piece that we're going to take a look at is just kind of refreshing our memory in terms of those policy settings that are there. So the first thing to make mention of itself is that team custom app setting that's out there. And so this is one that I think a lot of users and a lot of organizations forget about. That when you turn it off from a team perspective, team owners can add it if their custom policy allows it. Members who aren't owners can't add custom apps to the team. And so I think that's important if you want to manage it, appropriately. If it's on, then of course owners can add it if the custom app policy allows it, and then the same thing applies for the members' appropriate component. And as we jump into the next area here, is we're taking a look at that org-wide setting for it. Like I said earlier when we explained it, it's a more or less a organizational wide approach, right? It's the on off switch that's needed here. And so with that being said, from an on-off switch to control it, this is where you can choose to turn it on or off for an organization. Same thing with the third-party apps. And so here, when you're taking a look at that area itself, that custom apps, if you're not quite ready, if you're at the beginning of your deployment, if you haven't quite finished it, right, you want to focus in on the main workloads of teams. Maybe you want to configure that and take that away from using the third-party applications. But keep in mind, or the custom apps, keep in mind, you can still have PowerApps and Power Automate and some of those different tools available as well without having to go down the custom app side of the world, right? So that goes back to the one diagram, and I'm going to have to take a peek at it again because it was the first time I saw it from Joel in the last session where he had it building upon that area of the apps that are out there. So with that side of it, you know, I think kind of the main takeaways and in summary that I would, focus your energy and effort on is, coming up with what apps users are actually going to use. I threw a few at you here today. Some of them are built at Microsoft, built-in apps that you can pin for your users. You also have the ability to, kind of create your own, whether it's a Power App and bringing those types of areas in. But before you invest a lot of time and effort and energy into anything, take a step back, gather some feedback from your users, and understand what apps or what items they're really going to use. So back to the bot concept, just because you can build a bot is great, right? It's a simple process to build. But what is the purpose? What are you going to use it for? How are others going to really go down the path of understanding, what is in use and how it's in use there? Take a look at some of those template ones that are out there. It was in the forum. There's a couple times it's linked here in the deck. If you do a quick online search for Microsoft Teams app templates, you'll find them there as well. Take a look at those, but also understanding that some of those do need an Azure subscription. Maybe they require, different licensing that you have as well. So, take a second to take a look at those and explore those items as well. But, I think, I always go back to the crawl, walk, run approach. And I think the crawl approach is either using a Microsoft built one or, using a third-party app that's already available to you and you just add it in and all's well. Then your walking approach is probably going down the Power platform, whether it's Power Virtual Agents for chatbot or the Power App side of the world. And then, of course, you can go much more in depth, right? And so that's where the running, approach really comes through. And I think you're seeing a lot more organizations start to develop and utilize that because Teams is no longer just used for chat, right? It's no longer just used for file collaboration. The app side of the world is important, but you have to take a step back and say, what are those policies and how do I configure the appropriate policies that are there? So with that piece of it, I want to be respectful of everyone's Friday afternoon. So I typically plan all my sessions to last about 75 minutes. So with that being said, as we're taking a look at it, Tim, I'll turn it over to you here. I know you have a drawing to give out, and then if there's any questions or comments, we certainly can take those as well. And if there's anything else I need to demo. So Tim, we'll turn it back to you here. I'll go ahead and stop presenting.
All right. Thank you very much, Pat. That was great. Does anybody have any questions for Pat?
Been a little quiet in the chat window compared to the other few sessions that are out there. So here's your chance to get included in, right, Tim?
Yep. Like I said, it is, or like you said, it is Friday afternoon.
It's okay. It's okay. It's better than having to drive home after these, right? So hopefully most of you are in a nice location.